I think
But yeah,
it'll work.
last week was a massive week, not only for the reveal of Hoosier the Bison, but it was Hoosiers at Huber's massive NIL, massive donor event. The biggest, believe, NIL event that Indiana puts on. Obviously, neither of us were there, but from the outside looking in, it looked like an incredible event. You had the football player like Surratt and Fischer and Mendoza were there talking to people in line. You had the entire basketball staff there. You obviously got Cignetti, and we'll talk about some of his quotes. But yeah, it looked like a really beautiful event, a really cool event, one that I hope to attend in the future. Yeah, what are your initial thoughts on Hoosiers at Huber's before we jump into some of these Signetti quotes?
Like I said, I stand by anything to get more money in the bank. I'm always gonna be for it. Would be cool in a world to where we could be invited as ambassadors of the
That would
team.
be dope.
That'd be cool. We
If
gotta get
anybody,
more people to the YouTube if that's gonna happen. So if you're watching on Facebook or what else do? We do Twitter. Keezer runs all this stuff. I don't know, but if you're not on YouTube, get on YouTube. Slide on over, like,
I was gonna
subscribe,
say,
leave a comment.
if anybody in the chat was at the event last week and happened to get some of the Sig batch bourbon or any of caught any of the inside stuff that wasn't released to the public, and if you want to share some stuff, I don't know,
Yeah,
but
DM me.
yeah, looked like a really awesome event. But obviously, the quote that flew around everywhere. You get Signetti in front of a camera, get a chance to ask him a question. One of the things me and you were speculating on for a couple of weeks, even going as far as to say we don't believe the roster is done, is that, again, if you got a candid Signetti, he'd probably tell you they'd like to address some of the holes in the roster. His first quote was, I would have liked to add more to the roster, but Darren shows up, and he called him Darian. But Darren shows up, and he needed $10 million, or he needed whatever he needed for the roster, and he felt the pinch. And it got a nervous laugh from everybody standing around him, and it was funny, but it was very tongue in cheek. And I don't think it's cause for alarm, because like we'll get into Mendoza on NBC too. That interview was phenomenal, and we'll get into Cignetti on Big Ten Network. But like I think even if we could have added to this roster is already in a really good spot, and it has the opportunity to compete. So I wouldn't be stressing out about the fact that Signetti doesn't have enough money. The roster's in a great spot. That being said, I'd rather not have my head coach say that he felt the pinch when the world of college football we live in, there are big sharks swimming out there.
Yeah, of course. And I think it was a lighthearted joke.
Oh,
The
100%.
reality is that DeVries D-Rock did have 11, 13 spots to fill, and he filled 11 of them. And clearly we needed money to get it done with the amount of roster turnover we saw. So, it makes sense. I think it's a one-time thing. I don't think that's going to be an issue next year or the year after or anything like that. But yeah, let's keep donating, and this won't ever be an issue. So, anything to get more money in the bank, we're all for it. It's just the reality of the situation. I think there's still time to add a couple. Is there more time? I mean, we're getting to a point where it's like summer workouts, and I like where we're at. The only thing that would make sense for this team is to bring in like we talked about last time, of a younger, talented, like replace this Josh Philistine the scholarship, something like that. Like
who's still in the portal, by the way.
just a younger guy that we can bring in, and but yeah, those guys are hard to find. Those guys aren't in the portal is the problem. Like the guys, the young guys that are worth bringing in aren't in the portal. So it's starting to, the portal's starting to get to a point where there's checks and balances, and it's not complete overload, and not everyone's just fishing around. All the good players typically stay, and that's just how it goes. Like, if you're in a good program, why would you leave?
I agree. We also got Fischer and Surratt, kind of like a joint media availability at Hoosiers at Huber's. Wasn't a ton that came out of that, other than the guys are putting in work. They want to build upon last year, and it's like the mindset of this team, especially, like, it's not surprising, but it's still impressive the way these guys carry themselves after so much success. Although it's also not surprising given the amount of doubt that the public still has for them, which is insane. But the one big takeaway kind of from that was they asked Aiden Fischer what it's going to be like lining up next to Roe Hardy, and like he responded the same way everybody responds when they talk about Roe Hardy. It's just the dude's an absolute playmaker, and the more you see him, the more you're going to love him.
Love it. And speaking of Aiden Fisher, I looked up the Phil Steele covers. You'll never guess who's on the Midwest cover this year.
Is it Aiden Fisher?
All-American linebacker Aiden Fisher,
Hey.
accompanied by Rocco Becht, Dylan Raiola, this Illinois defensive lineman that I can't read the name, and number 1 on Michigan. Also can't read the name. So
Hey, there you go.
I'll
Aiden
be getting
Fisher,
that one.
Not underrated by Phil Steele.
No. If Indiana's on the cover, he clearly thinks that he's probably got Indiana at 4 or 5, like I think he's going to do.
Yep. We got a Cignetti appearance on Big Ten. I'm calling it the Sig 10 Network from now on. It wasn't a super eventful appearance, but again, anytime Cignetti touches the microphone, I'm paying attention. They asked him what the golden thread of the offense is. He said it helps with high level quarterbacks. And he mentioned Phil Rivers in that. He said they like to be on the cutting edge schematically, but also to not overcomplicate things and not to do things outside of the comfort zone too far. They want to be really good at the basics, but it really just comes down to good players being well coached.
Duh.
They asked him about the defense. He said Pons takes away half the field. Fisher is a master communicator. Kamara is a problem, and Amari Farrell is a really, really good player. And development is key for Farrell. But it's, again, Sig doesn't go out of his way to shout out like people at random. Like, it's Amari Farrell, and I'm like made a Roe Hardy edit last week, made an Amari Farrell edit today. Like, it's really exciting guys to have in this room. A lot of really, really good football players. But I wanted to mention the D'Angelo Pons.
I don't think we've emphasized the fact that we have an NFL player on each level of our defense this year. Enough. Obviously, they were All-Americans last year, and we've talked about how we have All-Americans coming back. I think it changes the lens in which you see it if you just call them NFL guys. And when you have a ton of NFL guys, typically you win a lot of games. If you just look back on who's in the league and what teams they played for when they were at that school, they probably overachieved what they typically do. So unless it's like a Bama or Ohio State that wins every year, but I'm saying like all the Iowa State guys that were good, like Purdy, Montgomery, and Breece Hall, like that was their best era ever. And all those guys are playing in the league. Alan Lazard, another Iowa State guy. So I'm just using Iowa State as an example here. But when you look back as a historian myself, you see the NFL guys tend to play on the teams that win a lot. It really is that simple. Like we talked about, it doesn't get more X's and O's versus Jimmy's and Joe's than football. I see it as equal weight as opposed to, other sports like baseball or basketball where it really is just Jimmy's and the Joe's at the end of the day. But that stuff is in a game like football where it's push and shove, rock versus hard place. How do you get ground? It's talented football players. So if you're met schematically and you're coached just as well, what's going to get you over the edges is high-level talent. And that's what we saw when we played Notre Dame and Ohio State last year. We were able to get it done against Michigan, who probably had more. We'll see looking back, but another team with high-level NFL talent, we were able to out-scheme them, and while also being able to compete athletically with them to a point where we were able to get the job done, right? So, that's how those things go.
No, 100%. But then, like, you look at like Pons specifically, there was that PFF tweet about him yesterday. He had 436 coverage snaps, allowed 1 touchdown, 3 picks, 7 pass breakups, 49.5 passer rating allowed, and an 85 coverage grade. Our buddy Jamie Jordan came on top of that, said Pons allowed catches on just 32 of 60 targets for 263 yards. His 8.2 YPC against ranked 20th in the FBS. Pretty remarkable considering PFF credited him with 22 stops, 8th in the FBS. He said run or pass, Pons was awesome. And then
we'll love to see where he stacks up in all those metrics of return. Are those returning players or?
I think that was that was last year.
Just last year. So a majority of the guys that were above him probably went league. So he's probably top 5 in most of those categories in terms of returning players, which is 100%. We already knew Pons one of the best players in the country, let alone probably the best player at Indiana coming into next year, which is crazy to say because Mikhail Kamara is the returning leader in pressures last year. And you bring in
Brad, he's on the lot Impact Trophy preseason watch list as well.
Love that. Yeah. It's a prestigious award. Anthony Barr, Loyola High School, UCLA won that award way back in the day.
And then Pons has his camp in South Florida. Fischer and Surratt have their camp in Virginia. I believe the Fischer and Surratt camp, like signups or whatever, are open. So if you got a youth playing football in that area, or if you're in South Florida, go check out Pons and check out those guys on socials. Doing really good stuff.
I would love to coach receivers with Elijah. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I'm sure he's looking for help, right? Get your ass down to Virginia.
We're learning how to get out the phone booth. That's what that's all we're gonna talk about, the phone booth.
Well, and I didn't know where to fit this in, but this is actually a good spot. There was Coach Ojong that had him on, I think it's the AFCA, 35 under 35. It's like a series of just like coaches in their field teaching different things. And they had Coach Ojong teaching press coverage. That video was super interesting. Obviously, I didn't play a lick of defensive back, so all of it's completely foreign to me. But I feel like after watching a lot of that video, I could at least line up and look the part. I'd get smoked as soon as the ball was snapped, but you'd be like, oh my God.
You're not jamming. I'll tell you that.
We'll get the Indiana Hoosiers live. Give me like
You're just not.
Give me like
I'm getting out the phone booth so fast.
We'll see.
So fast.
But shout out to Coach Ojong. Really nobody better in the country at their job than Coach O. Between him and Ola Adams, we have probably the two best defensive back coaches in the country. So we're obviously in phenomenal hands in those rooms.
Yeah, they make plays. I saw your tweet of the Amari Farrell interception against Michigan State. I liked the other pick way more in same game where he, makes a Travis Hunter-esque, vertical diving catch, a super athletic. I mean, that was pretty. That was a pretty play.
Yeah, he had two picks in that game, and he had a pick in the UCLA game as well.
Yes, he did. I was watching.
With our very own Brad Loomis in attendance.